You're listening to a 4x4 Radio Network podcast.
Hey Jeepers, Kevin here. Welcome to episode, 122?
Yes.
Yes, 122 of On the Trail with Kevin and Scott. I'm Kevin, the engineer, the guy that typically reads the instructions, has the right tools, and follows those instructions. And across the microphone from me is...
I am Scott. I am the guy holding the skull and going, Yorick, how I almost kind of knew thee, and thus been reading thine Hamlet for school, and have completely scrambled what's left of the noggin inside my brain. So while we
Except the brain is inside the noggin, so yes, it's definitely got you inside out.
So while we will share what worked for us, and as well as what didn't, remember, it's always up to you to do what you want to your dream.
Do your research.
Dream?
Like we said, late night talk Jeep show.
OTT After Dark, and read the instructions and follow them, please.
Yes, please. So. Anywho, some of this show is not going to be a surprise to those of you who follow us on Facebook. And thank you to the 600 plus at the moment. I'm not sure where it's going.
Shares or at least people
views and then the shares of my trials and tribulations as we attempted to flat tow the Jeep behind a Super C RV.
Yeah.
Long and short of it, the Super C that my wife and I own is powered by a very nice Cummins commercial truck motor, not a pickup truck motor. But discovered this interesting new thing going on through the trucking industry that may be part of some of the delivery delays that we're all seeing for parts and materials. The diesels, as many of you know, the current ones have to have either a regen, if they're smaller, or an SCR, selective catalytic reduction system, if they're larger, which is the one that uses that diesel exhaust fluid, more commonly known as DEF or Blue DEF, or colloquially blue goo, as a lot of people in stores say, even though it's not blue. It just the German phrase comes in as blue.
Other names are known, but unfortunately they're not family friendly for
No,
the
they're
show.
not. The tank system that's very, very common on the mid-range vehicles, trucks, and I'm talking about International, Navstars, Freightliners,
even the new diesel.
Volvos, they all have this 7.5 gallon, looks like an old hat box shape, hanging sideways, usually somewhere around the fuel tanks.
Yeah.
And it's got the blue cap on it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the computer chip assembly, there are some problems with the control circuits, causing the DEF fluid to get hot in the tank, causing ammonia vapors that cause corrosion, that cause complete system chaos, that then makes your ECU go, ah! And alarms go off and gauges do weird things and red lights come on. And if you continue to push the vehicle, it will derate and you'll start losing power.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, that is a terrifying thought when you're climbing through the mountains of Georgia, North Georgia, making sweeping curves and going up and down, and the sun is going down and going, how far can I go before this thing drops out from underneath me?
In an 8-foot lane with an 8-foot wide vehicle.
Pretty much. Well, it was 12-foot line lane. It was also, I was on it wasn't I-75. I forget. I was somewhere north of Marietta, outside of Emerson, Georgia. And for those in that area know of Lake Allatoona, and that will come into play shortly. So we had this failure, and I was able to get to an exit and get off at a I will not name the truck stop, but it's very common, big 4-letter sign. You can figure it out from there, folks. To be only told, oh, I'm sorry, no, you can't park here, and no, we don't service RVs. Well, it is an RV box, but it's international.
The same front end as half the trucks here.
Yeah, it's the same. Sorry, our insurance won't let us. Which, when I talked to International the next day, they were more than a little bit miffed about that.
Yeah.
But What this is about is a couple of things that will relate to any of us who drive modified Jeeps, particularly those of us who drive Jeeps that are using non-Jeep components, shall we say.
There's the ones that did some engine swaps and
I learned some hard lessons, and it's humbling because, I've been doing this for a long time, 63 plus years. And of those, at least subtract 16 from that, you figure out how long I've been behind a steering wheel. And I've usually been fairly well prepared for most situations. And in this case, I found myself not quite so prepared. Yep.
And that's the thing, like when we talk about like being prepared and to take things on the trail, like one of our second show, it's literally this second show, what to bring on the trail. Kevin, you are a person that I have learned from, where you bring your bags of tools to fit this, make sure you have this socket and do all these things. And
weird things like the hub sockets for the old type locking hubs I have on my TJ, which is that 4-pronger, that if you don't have it, you ain't fixing it, the kind of a thing.
Well, not only that, but before you left, you gave the RV a clean bill of health. You everything that was in your power to do, you made sure you took care of it. You checked every box that you thought of.
That I thought of. That's the key.
That's the key. And so don't beat yourself up too much, because everything is a learning curve.
It is, but it's humbling when your wife and you are sitting on the side of a highway in the mountains and it's getting dark.
Yeah.
And you're like, is this thing going to get me anywhere?
Yeah.
Basically, I was fortunate in some ways and unfortunate in some others. And let's start with the basics. Who do you call?
Yeah.
Now, if you have a Jeep and it's unmodified, AAA, and you can take it to any Jeep dealer, Chrysler dealer, Dodge dealer, it's kind of intuitive. But unless you're a trucker, okay, I've got a International Durastar 4400 chassis. Who do I call?
Yeah.
I didn't have a number.
You're not flatbedding that out.
Yeah, I'm not flatbedding that out. So that's a heavy tow. If I had to have a heavy tow. I've never done a heavy tow. Do I have the tow hook front clips for a heavy tow for that click in? Well, yeah, they're part of that particular chassis. I found out afterwards, but I hadn't done my homework on what do you do if it goes wrong. All right. And why is that relevant to a Jeep? Well, I'm going to tell you point blank. If you have a modified Jeep, Scott, you get a perfect example.
Yeah.
If you've got an LS swap to Jeep, you have 1-ton axles out of the front's a Ford F-250 and the rear's a
14-bolt Chevy.
14-bolt Chevy. Do you have that written down?
Do you have the years? Do you have what brakes
did you put on those? Did you have a custom hose for the power steering pump from the GM motor to the Jeep steering box?
Custom hose from the brake line to the axle.
Do you have that documented? And the sad thing is, it made me realize I have that documented. I have a build sheet on my Jeep. I don't have it in the Jeep.
Right.
So it doesn't do me a hill of beans. Just plays it nicely. If I'm up at a Jeep event and I damage something, if it's sitting on my computer down here at my home base.
Right.
So it's what's called a fault planning in the engineering world, is trying to think, all right, what do I need to be prepared if Murphy decides to stick his foot into my
wheel your spokes,
my wheeling,
Yeah.
And I got caught flat-footed, and it's kind of embarrassing for me to be caught flat-footed. Now, we rescued it. There's no question about it. And if anybody saw the posts again, you know that the next day after a night's sleep in a park, I was able to contact through a chain from my coach manufacturer who put me onto the International, who actually had an advocate, who then called around, found me a nearby service center that would service the Durastar chassis with an RV body on it, because a lot of them are like, well, we're going to do that, which I think is a little wrong and short-sighted with them, but I get it that if you went cheap on your insurance, so be it. You're going to lose that whole market. Yeah. And I was able to, taking the low road, so to speak, the slower speeds, keep the temperature down. I was able to get the RV to the center, and they took it happily. And so I don't have the RV back yet, but we'll get there, we were joking about it earlier that I'm probably the optimum customer they can get. I know what the problem is. I know the part numbers and the serial numbers for the vehicle. I have my own transportation out. I didn't need a tow.
You were the best customer for the worst case scenario. And that's one of the things, like, I'm going to go back to real quickly because I cut my teeth in a parts store that was 2 blocks from a racetrack. So every Saturday night was, I'm in the finals. I got to get back in 30 minutes. I need a ball joint for my race car. Okay, what kind of car? Well, it's a race car. Okay, what did you get the parts out? I don't know, maybe a Malibu, maybe? Okay, so I look at the bell. Well, that's not it. Dude.
You got to give me a clue.
Minutes are ticking by. And they would bleed their frustration out on me. Yeah. See, and that's where, again, when you're taking these, you're modifying. I know JK right now, a lot of people are putting 1-ton axles on them. And that's a very popular thing. And that's why I brought that up, because have that build sheet with you. Put that in the bag. And remember to be patient, because everyone makes the joke, the parts guy behind the counter doesn't know what I'm talking about. It's a Dana 44. Well, you know what? To that person's catalog, we got to know what year and vehicle the Dana 44 came out of, because we can't just type in D44 and parts come up.
Yeah, they don't. So you have to know that Dana 44 came out of a such and such a year, Ford chassis. Same thing with the Ford 8.8, So, like I said, I kicked myself on my Jeep because I realized that I did that homework. You've seen my build sheets. Yeah. They list the maker, the model number, even the part numbers for the replacement parts, so that I could order them if I had it with me.
Yeah, but you also, by chance, you kept that paperwork inside your chassis number or your chassis number for your RV. The guy said, "Hey, what's your chassis number?" Well, I got my VIN number. Oh, that's not it. And then you had that paperwork. It helps defuse an explosive situation.
It really did. He was like, "Oh, wow, you have that." I said, "Yeah, here's the serial number." He pulled it up, and lo and behold, he knew who I was.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, you're Kevin, this is, and you're from this part of Tampa." And yeah. Okay. Yeah. We have records on our warranty. So good. That whole hurdle's over with.
Yeah.
Great. He says, "So what's the issue?" I tell him what the issue. He says, "Oh yeah, that's in the 3-year, 100,000 mile warranty category. That's covered." Okay,
great. Let's
Number
do it.
2, where?
Yeah.
And then he even was willing to sit down and talk to me because I'd answered all the other questions with the information by happenstance, not by planning. That's my embarrassment.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Okay, we'll get you here. This is how long did you run it with the alarms on?" And I said, "Probably no more than 15 miles. He said, "I think you're good." He said, "You should be able to put 100 to 150, maybe even 200, depending if it's downhill or uphill kind of thing, before it starts derating you. And we just got to get you 22 miles down into South Marietta, almost Smyrna, Georgia." And a big shout out to the folks down at the Rush Truck Center in Smyrna. It's right on the line. Literally, they're on the corner of the light. That on this side of the light, it's Marietta, and then that side of the light, it's Smyrna, and they're on the Smyrna side. But they were most accommodating, understanding to the non-truck driver dropping off a huge freight chassis in a panic situation. So what I can suggest to everybody out there who's running a modified Jeep, make your build sheets. We've talked about that in early shows. We haven't talked about it in a couple of years. Keep the information, even if you don't want to keep all the paperwork. If you pulled it out of an 87, F-250, it's the front axle, and it, look that up. Go ahead and do it now is the best thing to do, and then put in the different part numbers. Like, at the very least, get a FOMOCO part number for the brake pads and the wheel bearings, because if you're out wheeling this thing and you bust them, guess what? If you have the Ford Motor Company part numbers, they can cross-reference them pretty dang easily.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't want to put all the other stuff. But this is, fault planning. I didn't do that for the RV, thinking, hey, it's brand new. It doesn't have that many miles on it. I'd looked up the issue with the DEF system failures, but it was not happening to 10 or 15,000 miles. I was only going 1,000-mile round trip. It wasn't going to happen to me. Wrong answer, Kevin. I teased Murphy, and Murphy said, "You and the horse you rode in on."
No. Murphy was sitting there reading a magazine going, "Say what?" But no, this popped in my mind.
Uh-oh.
When you do a flight, when you're going to fly somewhere and you're a pilot, what would you do?
You do a checklist.
Well, okay, flight plan.
Yeah.
Close enough though. You're going to go on the boat. So you're going to have a float plan. You're going to tell people where you're going. Have a wheel plan.
Yep.
Okay, because you talked about how, had I got a flat tire, I should know who to call on the side of the road, those guys that you see in the pickup trucks that you hopefully slow down for, get into the other lane so these guys can change tires. Okay, I know I have a modified Jeep. What are the two parts that are a handful of parts that I know that I had to either have made or B, had to wait for the Acme adapter from Novak?
Yeah.
You do a float plan. In other words, you go, okay, if I'm going to Jasper Jeep Fest,
Yep.
okay, do they have a company that makes hoses? If they don't, maybe I should bring a spare.
Yeah. If it's something that you are at risk for, agreed.
Right.
I'll be honest, power steering hose rips off, you kind of
You work those muscles.
you can work the muscles. But yeah, I agree with that. At least know that it was a custom
Drive shaft shop.
drive shaft shop, what U joints and what length, if it's a custom. Again, those kinds of bits of data are empowering. Okay. I hadn't even looked up how to call for a tow truck that can pull an RV. That was my failure. That was a little bit of hubris that it, got slapped down hard. And the good news is when, the night's sleep, we were able to rescue things and we were able to push on. Although I will admit it was a comical sight, folks. And those of you that own TJs, not LJs, I would have killed for that extra 12 inches or whatever.
Go me. Go me.
I ended up taking the back seat out, and it's now in the middle of the RV underneath the dining room table, folded up neatly. And we had to take everything perishable. Okay. Mm-hmm. This is a truck repair center. There's no refrigerators there for me to store stuff into. No. I had to take everything personal. Had to take everything
you had to take
pilferable.
You had to take Mr. Stuffins, your teddy bear.
And, but there was stuff that we brought pillows, our pillows from home because they sleep better, But, I wedged that entire RV's worth of stuff that I couldn't live without. I had to leave my little barbecue grill that I use here, but store in the RV when we're traveling. And if I really get desperate, I can buy a new Q grill and use that. But we got a tremendous amount of clothing, and all that kind of stuff in there. Ran down to once we were done and they had me park the RV, handed them the keys, signed the little service thing, and then we jam in the Jeep, which is now somewhat overloaded, probably. Bulldogging a bit. We find a local Walmart and go in there and buy some beach bags. You know what I'm talking about? The little carry bags you see ladies carry all the towels and stuff in because they're cheaper than luggage. And they fit better, too, because they squish. A couple of space bags because, believe it or not, I had my shop vac in the RV, my little portable DeWalt battery-powered one.
Awesome.
Because that's a good thing on the RV travel. And it will suck a space bag down. It takes a little longer, but it will. And it's amazing when the pillows get turned into planks.
No, I'm over here going, when a politician's not around to suck the air out of the room, use a mini shop vac.
Well,
sorry.
Not quite as quick as the politician, but it does work.
Okay. Moving on.
But, and we were able to call our friends that we couldn't stay with the previous night that we were supposed to up in Dalton, Georgia. And they were like, yeah, come on up. We're still great because my wife, bless her soul, she saved my sanity. She's like, look, I just checked the lodge because we were meeting 4 other couples up there, kind of a big chill group for those that understand that movie reference.
I do.
And there were going to be 3 of us in the RV park and 2 were staying in the lodge. Well, Sue called the lodge and the lodge had rooms available and we could get all but 2 days of our campsite back because there was a 48-hour cancellation. And so we weren't going to make that for the first 2 days, but they'd give us the rest back, put it against the rooms. It really didn't cost us that much. I'm very lucky that way because it could have been a disaster. But we did have to push the Jeep into about 800 miles in a TJ fully loaded. We got up to our friend's house. We fixed a little bit of the squirreliness by increasing the air pressure. this is another one of those things you learn, folks. When you load your vehicle down, you may be running a softer tire when it's empty on the trail.
Right.
But when you load it down, it gets kind of squishy and squirrely. And the other thing, this is really strange. I learned that TJs are hypersensitive because of the short rear wheelbase, the front to back and where the axles are. When we unloaded the RV into the TJ, you tend to carry the big stuff out and stuff it up against the front seats. And then you kept loading and loading and loading. And my wife had bottled waters. They were not throwaway waters. These were some of her good stuff that she pays for. And then the frozen foods. And you wouldn't think that, if you look at where the center line of the rear axle is and the tailgate, it's only about 18 inches.
Right.
But that was where a lot of the heavy stuff was. And that was behind the axle. And that was causing a little bit of bulldogging and making it squirrely. So after we got to our friend's place and they let us stuff all the cold stuff in their freezer, and we left some of it with them. But when we repacked the Jeep the next morning to go on to Montgomery Bell State Park outside of Tennessee, I started, let me treat this as loading cargo I would in a pickup where you want to keep weight bias forwards. Mm-hmm. So like in a trailer, if you don't have at least 60% weight in front of the axle on the trailer, you start to get that fishtail.
You'll wag the dog.
The tail will wag the dog. And we moved, and I basically put all my tools either under the seats or all the way up, tight, and then put the water bottle up tight, and the cold frozen foods, which were heavy, that we were taking, up tight, and then built from there to where the back was, the clothing and the lightweight stuff and the bags that didn't weigh anything and the pillows, although the pillows now were planks, in the vacuum bag, so they actually became shelves to stack stuff on. And it was amazing the difference in how the Jeep handled.
Right.
So keep that in mind, those of you in CJs, YJs, TJs, two-door JKs.
Yeah.
If you put a lot of weight in the back of the Jeep, try and get it as far forward as you can.
I want to pause you real quickly
Yep.
because a lot of Jeepers do flat tow their Jeeps.
Yep.
It's a very common thing. And, the just to make sure that I'm aware of it, it's the transmission in park transfer case neutral. Am I correct on that?
Well, in an automatic, yes.
Automatic, yeah.
Okay. In a manual, it's better if you leave neutral and give yourself a safety. Okay.
Another thing you talked about is, the type of tow bar system and brake system you used, you wanted to touch on.
Yep.
Hopefully I'm not jumping too far ahead.
No.
But you also talked about the chalk on the front tires.
Yeah.
Something that was kind of interesting. For those of you who flat tow, even if it's behind a pickup truck, this is really interesting stuff.
Yeah. Folks, I have long been a proponent of trailering your Jeep to an event. Not because there's something wrong with flat towing, but if you trash your Jeep, you can usually throw the garbage on the trailer and get it home.
No. You quote, you can winch the carcass onto the trailer.
You can winch, that's assuming your winch still works, or somebody with a nice Jeep will come over and park in front and act as the winch line. And yes, I have had cause to have that particular incident to where, limped it home and got it. But flat towing has advantages. One of the things I've discovered recently since the pandemic is a lot of places now do not provide, or at least for free, the storage area for the trailer.
Yeah.
Okay. So you now have a problem like, okay, where do I put my tow rig, for storage while I'm out wheeling that's secure? And if you flat tow, of course, there's no trailer, and it's a little easier to find a parking spot for a tow truck, a truck that tows while you do it, or you can just usually park it at your rental center, wherever you're renting, your hotel, whatever. However, I was still concerned. Okay, there's a lot of geometry, I won't bore you with it, about towing a vehicle, particularly a vehicle with a straight front axle like a Jeep. And so I used this opportunity because I did flat tow it with the RV. And I had done my research on different hitch systems as well as different braking systems. And we'll get to each one of these in detail here, but hopefully it's something that might help you guys understand what you're dealing with. The first thing I wanted to do was, okay, I'm flat towing. What does that do to my front tires? Okay.
Yeah.
besides rolling, when you're turning, you're forcing the steering wheel to follow, and it rotates because the tires are pushing it. And I actually have fairly high caster angles because I have a custom front axle, and I was able to order what's called the included angle between the differential pinion angle and the caster angle. On a lot of TJs, that came as 90. Okay, so you really don't have a whole lot of give there. Some of the XJ axles that are desirable had upwards of 100 degrees, okay, in between those two, which gave you 10 degrees of caster when the pinion was flat. So you can kind of, and I have 105 or 110, something like that.
Yeah.
So that I actually could have a few degrees up pinion to line up with my front drive shaft and still have 7+ in my front end, which is one of the reasons that slightly altered handles on the road pretty dang nicely.
Yeah.
So I did the old chalk trick. I took a piece of chalk and I did scrub bars on the tires, hitched up the RV, and then drove out of my community and stopped. I was kind of appalled that I hadn't even gone a mile and there wasn't a trace of chalk left. It had wiped everything from edge to edge off. So I will say that still flat towing puts additional wear on your front tires.
Right.
Because of the scrub. You're forcing the Jeep, you're pulling the tire sideways, which makes the steering wheel turn, okay, taking some of the pressure off, but there's still a lot of side slide, and that's going to wear. So you just expect additional front end wear, and you may want to do front to rear rotations more frequently if you do a lot of flat towing of your Jeep.
Right.
Tire pressure, I'd run a little higher because shouldn't be anybody in the back to get bounced around. So that would tend to minimize the edge scrubbing a little, but underline a little, not a lot. If you don't have a lot of caster, okay, if you've got stock axles and you've lifted it, 4 or 5 inches and that kind of stuff to where you're down in that under 4 degrees of positive caster, it's going to slide the tire sideways as you go around curves. It'll turn a little bit, but it's not going to turn as much as it should to have a stress-free turn. Yeah. You're really going to lose some rubber. And I documented that with my own little unofficial testing of marking and driving and marking and driving.
Well, also side load on your wheel bearings too.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of side load on the wheel bearings. So you may find that if they're weak, you may be doing wheel bearings at the end of your toe. Now, some of the other things that we talked about is towing. You can buy the cheapy tow bar. No question about it.
Nothing wrong with it, but
is the hitch you're using, the drawbar, the ball, all rated for what you're towing? The cheap ones often are limited to 5,000 pounds. That's not 5,000 pounds the weight of the Jeep. That's what the loading is, that you're pulling. So you're taking your Jeep, you fill it full of your crap, and you're going up and down mountains. You may be stressing things to a point. Make sure that you do have safety chains, that you cross them under the tongue. Make sure that your tow bar mounts are secure. That's probably the biggest thing I see when I see people flat towing is they've just come up with some sort of cobbled situation or worse. They are clipped into bumper brackets. The little things on the aftermarket bumpers that look like toe points that people hang their clevises from, folks. You need to find out, is that rated for towing?
Yeah.
It's one thing to pull where you can see it if it starts to fail. But if that is not a rated bumper for a tow connection, okay, and the manufacturer won't certify it, you're at risk. If your Jeep breaks free because your bumper pulls off and you damage things, you're actually now liable for all the impacts that Jeep did.
Yeah.
So make sure that you've got a good tow system. I use something called the Nighthawk system. It doesn't use a hitch. It actually, the tow bar itself plugs into the receiver on the back of your tow vehicle. You clip it. I use a locking system. It has extendable arms, and it uses what's called a base plate system that on the case of a TJ, they actually sell this showing a lifted TJ. It's made and is acceptable to tow lifted 4x4s. The base plate doubles as a steering brace between the right and left frame rails, actually mounts to the steering box bolt systems. So, and the little lock-in pins that go in there come out so that if when you're wheeling, there's nothing in the way that, will get damaged.
You can have some fun with it.
You can have some fun with the Jeep and still tow it home. You might have to punch a load of mud out of the tubes where the clips go in, but you can do that kind of thing.
That's part of the fun part.
Right. It's also nice, the Nighthawk system, because the bars, the two tow bars, will not jam. If you've ever towed a flat tow and you've had bind on the clip that you can't get the damn thing to unplug, you can't unhook the thing because of the pressure. They have a guarantee, and so far it's been true, that you lift up the lever even under, the Jeep's pointing downhill into the back of your tow vehicle, and it'll still unlock, allow you to get an arm free, unlock the other one, get an arm free, and disconnect. Just make sure you get your parking brake back on, or put the vehicle in park so it doesn't roll forward.
Here it goes.
Yeah. So I'm really impressed with the Nighthawk system. All of the cables, the power cable for your lights and your breakaway system, and your two safety cables, not chains. They actually use steel cables, aircraft grade. I think it's 3/8 inch, like 20,000 pound breakaways, run through tubes in the main wide tube system. The outer tubes have carriers for those, so nothing drags on the ground. And when you're towing a Jeep, it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
It also, you will find out, I learned that if your hitch on your tow vehicle is so low that the tow bar points up, to your Jeep, you get squirrely handling. You need to be as level as you can, or slightly with the tow hitch towing higher than the Jeep. It's okay to have a little bit of downhill, and not good to have uphill. Uphill causes all kinds of steering,
Okay, so you want the bar facing up, or you want the bar facing down?
I want the bar to be higher at the back of the tow vehicle and lower on the Jeep.
Okay, so you want it to be like a Stinger in a way.
No, you keep saying that backwards. I don't know how to make it any clearer, but you want, if you're standing there and the tow vehicle's on your right and the towed vehicle, the Jeep, is on your left, I want the bar sloping downhill to the left to the Jeep. And your mind is still bass backwards.
No, basically, it's how it's your tow vehicle.
Yeah.
In my left hand, sorry. What you just said. The Jeep I'm towing, my tow vehicle.
Okay.
Right? Going like this.
Yes.
With a Stinger bumper sits in the bumper like a. That's what I was talking about.
Well, I'm talking about a reference from the tailgate of the.
No, from the Jeep
truck.
perspective,
From
you
the
want
Jeep.
it like a Stinger.
Yeah, but not that steep. You want it within 3 or 4 degrees kind of thing. And in my case, the RV's hitch point was very low by comparison. I ended up getting one of those hitch raisers that slides into the tow vehicle. You pin it in, and then it has a secondary slot that you put the hitch into that's 4 inches higher. Okay. I found something interesting on those. Surprising number of them when you start looking, not rated for tow. I'm not really sure what they're for then. Okay. That's scary when it says not rated for towing, not rated for towing. And finally I found one, and it's the difference between the ones that are $30 and the one that's $80. And the 80 one was rated for towing up to 10,000, or something like that. Right. And so I bought the one that, since my insurance company likes to read that kind of stuff, if there's ever an incident, I bought the one that is certified for towing up to, equal to what I needed. The Nighthawk also has a neat thing. Like I said, does not hook on a ball, so it can't come undone from a ball. Right. The only thing it does is it pins on the back of the tow vehicle. In fact, if you disconnect and need to run the Jeep somewhere, you can actually tilt the whole tow bar assembly up, and it locks in a vertical and then swings off to one side and locks, and it will ride there indefinitely without flopping around. It has a stowage position while still attached to the back of the tow vehicle as opposed to the towed. Now you know why they call things behind motorhomes toads.
Yeah.
Ribbit.
I was just going to say a little dinghy.
Yeah. But So that that tow bar, it's not cheap, folks. It also
have
has
lights.
it has lights on the two Y bars that let people know not that they can't squeeze in between the tow vehicle and the towed vehicle.
Yeah.
All right. The other part of the thing is the braking. All 50 states require some degree of braking assist for vehicles over 3,000 pounds. I don't think there may be one or two, but I can't tell you what they are.
It's best to err on the side of caution.
Now, there's a lot of systems out there, folks. There's some that you plug into the RV and you have to have the brake controller and all that kind of stuff. There are other ones that hook up to your actual brake system, and you can have a hydraulic feed that actually triggers, braking systems. There's
A plethora.
there's an air-powered system. There's a this-powered system. There's a that. And the one thing in common with all of them is either a whole lot of wiring or a whole lot of plumbing.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you're done, your towed is kind of permanently modified.
Yeah.
Okay. Except one. And again, this is not a cheap system, but if you're looking for a system that when you don't need it, it's not there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or can be used on the vehicle.
Or used on another vehicle without any major changes, The RVI System 3 is an inertial braking system. I'm not exaggerating, folks. I have the breakaway cable, which is the same one you put on every trailer that hooks up in case something comes free, so it'll set off the brake. I have that just on with a wing nut to the bottom of my bumper where I can take it off. And it comes with about a 15-foot long cord and a little plug on the end. And you feed that through. You can either drape it across the hood and stick it in the window. I actually got enough holes in my firewall with grommets in them that I just fed it through there, stuck it in on the floor pan, and tuck it in when I'm not using it. But that was my one, let's call it a modification, even though it really wasn't a modification. I didn't have to drill a hole. I didn't have to do anything. I just, hooked it up. And then you take this RVI3 braking system and you drop it on the floor where the driver's feet are.
Right.
That is it. The little claw you lift up and it clips onto the brake pedal.
It's the coolest thing.
You plug in that little breakaway cable on one side and you plug it into your cigarette lighter. Congratulations, you're done. And it'll go vroom, press, set up button. And you press it and you'll hear it. And all of a sudden that little ram will go and it'll push your brakes on.
Yeah.
And it'll go press, set up button again. Okay, you press it again. And it's bleeding the air out of your brake system because it can't trust there to be, or vacuum. It can't trust that there's vacuum available. It wants a dead braking system, worst case. And then it'll go third time. It'll say, press, set up button one more time. I mean, it's this box sitting on your floor talking to you. It's about 3 inches high.
It kind of looks like a Roomba with a really bad, angry arm wrestling arm.
Arm wrestling. And that last
BattleBots.
time it goes, and it goes, RVI brake system ready.
Yeah.
You're done, folks. Now, you can get options, and I do. I have a little Bluetooth system that you set in your towing vehicle that reports on it, tells you when it's braking. You can adjust the sensitivity. You don't have to have any wires. You don't have to have a brake controller in the truck like you do with a normal electric trailer brakes. It works fantastic. That's all I got to say. And I can swap it to any other vehicle. It doesn't have to use it with the particular tow bar I have. It's just nice.
Yeah. it
has the ability to pick up a few other options. And one of the options that I did have is I went ahead and splurged for their towed vehicle battery charger.
Right.
And it hooks just 2 wires to your battery. Find a spot to stick it on one of your fenders, and then go down and to your normal connector you have to use on your following vehicle that hooks up to your brakes, and that's a regular kit you can get from anybody.
Yeah.
Your tow vehicles usually provide power. They call it, down that thing, just auxiliary power. Well, this system taps out auxiliary power and the ground cable, and then uses that to keep your battery charged in your Jeep. Mm-hmm. So when you're driving, you never have a dead battery, no matter how long you drive, because it does pull a little bit of cigarette lighter power every time you brake. But not that often. And it was just kind of interesting and it'll report on that. It'll tell you that, hey, this is my voltage in your tow vehicle. This is the voltage I'm seeing in the Jeep. This is how many amps I'm charging, and we're all green. And then it's got a little target that shows you that, if you start to hit the brakes and the Jeep needs to, decelerate, all of a sudden you'll see braking, and it's got a little stage as it adjusts the brake application. It does not false trigger on downhill grades unless you hit the brakes. So the inertial system really works. Not the cheapest system, but if you do a lot of flat towing, it's nice. And coupling and decoupling, because of the ability to just hit 2 levers, pull 2 pins, unclip 2 safeties, and unplug your electrical, and you're disconnected and the Jeep's ready to drive.
Yeah.
So awesome system. That's going to get some more use, not just with the RV, but with the truck, to events like, Jasper and places like that. The downside to any tow bar and braking system is your Jeep's got to roll. And if it doesn't roll for some reason,
Time to take old Sparky for a drag.
Yeah. So, that's the one thing that trailering has is, if you can get the carcass up onto the trailer, you can pretty well get home.
I do have another quick question, because this is actually, we stumbled across this because, again, the excuse me, the forums and Facebook pages are a plethora of knowledge, as I do finger quotations. There's a huge argument, and one guy actually called me an idiot because the conversation about, how to tow the vehicle in park and all this. And I said, it might not be a bad idea. Just take an extra 5 minutes and remove the drive shafts.
Yep.
And one guy says, why would you want to do that? That's stupid, blah, blah, blah. He dressed me down. And the guy who owned a towing company goes, that's actually the right way to do it.
Yes.
Because you're taking 16, whatever math is, bolts to get it out. And then you don't have to worry about things coming apart or the transfer case slipping into gear or anything else. You're done. Yeah, okay. And the guy goes, well, I don't have time for that. And he goes, well, when you go wheeling, do you walk around your Jeep to make sure that nothing's bashed, broken, leaking fluids or whatever? Well, yeah. So when you flat tow your vehicle, do you walk around before you leave? Yeah. When you get to your spot, do you walk around? Whatever.
Yeah, I get it.
It's like, dude, take 5 minutes and an 8mm wrench, man.
That's it. Or a 12 if you've got the aftermarket bolts. And you don't, a Ziploc bag and a wrench.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the worst that can happen? Oh, it's raining when I get there. Okay. I got to crawl under the Jeep on a mattress or on a drop cloth or something like that.
A piece of cardboard.
Right. I've done enough with my Jeep to know that the transfer case is in neutral. Yeah. And folks, here's some things. Towing with certain transfer cases, not all of them, but NP 231, 241, there's a whole series of them, have the oil pump for the transfer case that keeps it lubricated, driven by the output shaft to the rear drive shaft. Those are safe to put in neutral and tow because you're spinning the drive shaft, therefore you're turning the oil pump, circulating lubricant throughout the transfer case, and you're not going to burn up the bearings.
Yes.
If you don't know that your transfer case can do that, disconnect the drive shaft. Okay? Because if you disconnect the drive shaft, you're not going to spin it. Okay? But here's the thing. If you do disconnect the drive shaft, you must disconnect both.
Yeah.
Because if the front drive shaft is turning, it's not in gear, it's just free turning. It's still, there's nothing pumping oil to the front pinion bearings on the output of any of those drive shafts. If on those transfer cases, if the drive shaft's not turning, and you will toast them unless you're like me, one of the weird ones who made a manual hub conversion. Mm-hmm. So when my hubs are unlocked, my front drive shaft does not turn. So
the funny thing was one guy goes, one of the guys made a comment about, I've towed for years and everything's fine. And, and he goes, and one guy made the great comment, goes, and I bet you the guy with that white Rubicon said the same thing.
Yep.
Till he left it in first gear.
Yeah, and the thing blew to pieces.
Yeah. You're good till you're not.
Yeah, that's kind of the way it is. So if you're flat towing a Jeep and absolutely positively want to make sure, it's 8 bolts, folks.
Yeah.
It's 8 bolts, a couple of bungee cords, 2 Ziploc bags to put the U-bolts or the strap bolts or whatever
you
into. Tie the drive shaft up away from the spinning yoke that comes out of the pinion on the Jeep.
Secure the drive shaft caps.
Correct, And my favorite trick for the drive shaft caps is pretty cheap. Go to your local lawnmower shop, buy an inner tube for a small diameter mower tire, like a front tire, okay? And you want one that's probably the inner tube's maybe 3 to 4 inches in diameter around the donut. If you cut through the donut and look at that circle, of what it would be. Because what you want to do is cut it up into wide rubber bands, about 1 inch wide.
Yep.
And then you can stretch that up and go boink, and it will hold across all 4 caps, and then you can strap your drive shaft up.
Yeah.
If you take the 4 off the front, the 4 off the back, secure the caps, tie them up to your exhaust. It's not going to be hot, or tie them up to a frame member, or tie them up to whatever's available.
Just make sure it's secure.
Just make sure it's secure. Maybe invest in some of those really long zip ties.
Yeah.
And bring enough that you can cut 2 of them and put 2 new ones on to go home. You'll flat tow with complete confidence that, okay, I don't have to worry about this.
Yeah.
Here's another quick tip. For those of you, because one of the downsides that people always complain about is, well, you got to put a key in the ignition. All right.
Oh, this is an awesome idea you did, man.
You got to leave a key in the ignition put to the accessory, or not accessory, that first click.
First click, yeah.
That unlocks the steering column so that the wheels can turn.
Yeah.
And for those of you who have the black keys that don't have the security systems, I'm sorry, this doesn't really help you. Okay. But if you have the gray keys, okay, all right, that are the SCIM system, and whether it's the newer one or the older ones, here's the trick. And it's really simple. Take your SCIM key into a key place, and you'll have a little bit of argument. They'll go, well, that's a computer chip key. I said, I know, but I want it cut in black. Okay, a plain key. But it won't start your car. Well, technically it'll start it, but it'll only go boom, blah, and it'll give me an error code.
Yeah.
But that key will still unlock the steering column. So if you're towing your vehicle and you whip into Cracker Barrel for lunch, or Stuckey's, to get a peanut log roll.
Half the people right now are going, how old is he?
He's the young one, folks. But, you can, and they grab, somebody jumps in your Jeep, slits your window and says, oh, the key's in it. Great. If you have a SCIM system, that black key will crank, it'll fire, and it'll quit. And I tested this. I did that a dozen times, literally 12 times, and was like, well, is that going to set a code? Is it going to lock out my Jeep? And I brought my gray key out, stuck it in, vroom, and it ran beautiful. It didn't set a code. So it's kind of neat. You've got a built-in, I won't call it a valet key. It's a secure steering unlock key.
That if you forget it, someone can't drive off.
Somebody can't drive off with your Jeep. And I think having the key cut cost me $1.60. So
yeah, well, and you can also, like, if you have a JK, you can also get, like, because everyone says, well, you got to program those keys. Well, if you're doing just that, you can get one of those keys dirt cheap and then not worry about program it.
That's a really good idea. So even in the later models, you just get one cut and don't program it, and it still will unlock your steering column for towing, for flat towing, but will not give a thief an easy door to drive off with your Jeep.
Thou shalt not remove thy Jeep from the Stuckey's parking lot while I eat thy pecan roll, or whatever you said.
Okay, Hamlet.
Oh, I gotta love school.
But this whole trip was a very interesting thing.
The best part was coming up, though.
And that is, give me a hint where you're going with it.
Back roads.
Oh, yeah. Well,
you kind of want to. Well, I guess before he goes into the bullet point, I do have to say this is that a little planning can go a long way.
Yeah, and that's the point here, is thinking not about all the good times. Think about, before you go a trip on your Jeep, particularly those that are heavily modified, think about what's going to be like when something goes wrong.
Yeah, well, we already had a couple two or three shows ago. Failure is always an option. Yeah, you got to think about that and use our boo boos for your
and most of us who've done the work ourselves have that information. If you don't do it yourself, you should be asking the guy that did the work for you for, okay, you guys put a lift on. Whose lift? What model? Did it change anything? Ball joints? What are common failure points? Wheel bearings, ball joints, brake shoes. You know, you get into the radical ones. We talked about the YJ that has the LS swap in it. What year LS? You know, what type of, you know, which computer does it have? What spark plugs does it use?
What starter?
There's
What
a great
alternator?
Yeah. Which ones, you know? If you're lucky, you can take the old one off and take it to a parts store if you have a way to get to the parts store.
Well, even then, and the reason why I said starters and alternators, well, starters not so much, but alternators, a lot of times they're not printed on, you know, how many amperage there are. And being a parts guy, a lot of the phone calls we get from the never any parts available, Napa, or these other shops, is I'm just kidding. I love those guys there. Is what is this amperage alternator? And, you know, is it a 200 or a 190? You can't look at, you can't tell.
You can't tell.
And they want to make, they hey, you know, and the problem is that a lot of the dealership network in their computers, because I have a catalog where I have Chrysler, Ford, Nissan, Toyota, and Lexus. Mm-hmm. Dealerships and those computers are taking that information out. You want to know why? They don't want me to give you the information because they want you to buy the alternator from me.
Yep.
And so I feel bad because I don't know. I don't have the answer now.
Yeah.
And it's horrible. And back then, sure, I'll give you the information. I don't care. You know, sure, it's 180. Because you know what? I'm thinking of a person stranded and can't go somewhere. Yep. So I'll give the information freely, but it just kind of hurts my heart now that I don't know.
Yeah, it's not provided to you to know that without a VIN number search.
Yeah.
And because that's the only way, folks, if you do have a VIN number off a donor engine, which you should, okay, then you usually can do a lookup on the build. And you'll find a lot of the stuff Scott's talking about on that build sheet. But for you, the really raw custom guys that have gone out there, you know, you need to. You are the warranty. Yeah. as the shirt now shows. I've seen that shirt. That's really cool.
Now, that's actually good. I like that. Yeah. Well, the cool thing is, like, you're right. Some of the build sheets will still tell me the information. So if you want that information, it doesn't hurt to show up to the parts store with a bag of donuts and say, "Hey guys." Hey, I have gotten more information from greasing the wheels a little bit because, you know, tales from the parts counter.
Yeah.
A lot of us are mirrors. What you show us, we'll show you. And if you're human and cool to us, we'll be the same to you to the best of our ability. But if you come in there with a chip on your shoulder, not me, but most parts people will give you the chip right back. So again, believe me, half the stuff that was covered, I can say it now because we don't have it anymore. Half the stuff covered in that JK was covered because I showed up with a box of Krispy Kreme.
I know.
Some Publix chocolate chip cookies. And I'm talking like $30 worth of snacks.
Yeah. And a
sitting
big old
on the
jug
front
of
seat.
Arizona iced tea.
And let me tell you something. A lot of times, I got my radio reflash program for a backup camera. Nah, don't worry about it, Scott. You got to go. And it only cost me some money in cookies.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got one of the cookies to boot. They want you to eat it.
I didn't eat any of the cookies that were on the passenger seat.
Yeah.
What are you doing to me, man? Shh.
No, that you're just proving to them that it's not poisoned.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's it from now on.
So it was an interesting experience for me, a little humbling, but it's very relatable.
Yeah.
I'm very proud to say that Slightly Altered rescued the vacation.
Yeah.
It was a little bit, the trip home, now 500 some miles, done in 2 days, coming down from Nashville area down to a little town called Albany, Georgia, which is where I was as a child and got to do some there, and then turning and heading to the east till I got to Tifton, Georgia, which is, I love that town. You hit 75 and then taking 75 all the way down to Hey, Tampa Bay. And the seats are nice. They're better than the average Jeeps. The lift is nice, pretty good too. But you know what? After 10.5 hours one day and 6.5 hours the next day, sitting that close together, bouncing back and forth. Replaced. I actually did some in-process door seals to get rid of some wind noise, which worked with a little Home Depot special stick-on stuff. But it was still. I'm going to take me a couple of days to get my hearing back.
And you had the hard top.
And I had
Can
a hard
you imagine
top.
the soft top?
Oh, that whole.
Well, at least you didn't have a
That's what I had to fix.
no of a light bar.
No, but I had it because of the hard top. The welting on the hard top.
Oh, no.
And the seal on the door. On both sides, about a 6-inch gap. You could see the line where there was air, and it was just in your ear.
747 in mid-flight.
Yeah, always in my left ear as I was driving, and my wife's right ear as a passenger.
What?
Yeah, and so a quick stop at a Lowe's, and I bought some 3/4-inch multi-beaded rubberized window seal. And it's like, well, it looks like it's right about here. Let me stick on a strip from here to here, and it was black. And I'll be honest with you, it's staying there because nobody's noticing it. And you shut the doors, and now they shut so tight that if you both slam the door at the same time, one of them blows back open.
Pop the windshield up.
Yeah. So, but I was very pleased to say that once you get down to it, the TJ did return like 16 plus miles per gallon.
Wow.
On the freeway. It's still, running even just 33s on that lift. It's still a two-handed drive, and you cannot relax. You've got to stay attentive because it keeps looking over at those truck one-way ramps and those, service trails off the side of the highway going, oh, I want to go there. Oh, no, I want to go over there. Oh, no, I want to go over here. No, we're going home. I don't want to go back to the garage. I want to go on a trail. We didn't go on a trail anywhere. I
just been 300 miles pushing that RV. We're going on a trail.
Yeah, that's what it felt like in a few places. And they were more of a few. It's funny you say that because we were actually crammed in riding with our friends in their vehicles. We tried to keep a number down.
Right.
And we're driving somewhere and they're talking about, oh, looky over here at this beautiful lake. And my wife looks at me and she says, you're looking down that dirt road, aren't you? Yep.
My Jeep could make it.
I could make that.
It's so funny you say that because, again, when we were up to North Carolina, the Gladiator got 21 miles to the gallon. Okay. And it actually did. I was driving like Ethel Merman, but we were up in a hiking trail and I just said the same thing.
Yeah.
Man, the hell did I can make up that?
Yeah. So, it's you can drive them. Yeah. You may not be able to walk for a while after you get out.
Yeah. So have you driven it since you got back?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, I have. I probably sold Rock Slide Engineering another dozen steps.
Oh, I want to ask you. So the whole trip.
The whole trip.
Good.
The whole trip, the passenger side, folks. Scott, as I told you before, Scott discovered the oopsie in the manufacturing. That was a little burr. We cleaned that out. It literally took me, 2 minutes with a file and had it cleaned up, and it has not stopped since. Even on the 105-degree days, it did not stick once.
Yeah. So now we're going to do the other side before we go to Jasper.
Yeah, because it works, but it's kind of like clank.
It does. It's not nice and smooth.
Oh no, it's kind of loose.
I made this comment today. Did the idea, your body is your temple, and mine's a rusted Wally Watt shell shed. But so the one side is the.
I thought you were going to say a rusted out Yugo.
No. Wally Watt shed just has more good alliteration. But so the one side is a nice new, the other side, like I said, is the Wally Watt. I really joke. Moving on. Hey, speaking of which,
yes.
What do you call a deer with no eyes? No idea. Okay, I just had to do that one joke. I'm sorry. Exactly. I can literally hear the mom and dad in the front seat and the little kid going, "Oh, Dad."
Yeah, I was going to say, why are you telling dad jokes?
We were telling him so much in the parts room today that one of the guys says, "I got to get out of here," and we're like, "Why do you got to leave?" He goes, "All these dad jokes. I'm about to get pregnant." So got him while he was drinking.
Yeah, but it wasn't a spit take. It was close.
No. But the cool thing is, like you said, you salvaged the trip. You got a chance to get out there and prove that 2 adults and all the luggage in the world that came out of a 35-foot RV can and truly be done
in a TJ. And it was a very, very interesting trip. And like I say, as it went along and the consumables were consumed and each stage got a little less, by the time we rolled into Tampa, it didn't really take us a whole lot of time to unload the TJ, and I wasn't real careful anyways. She ran well. Service was good, but that was the whole thing is, I had checked all wheel bearings before we left, and I had no idea that all of that service was going to end up being put to active use. I thought it was just going to be towed behind and then drive around Nashville a little bit and then put back on a tow and drug back home. Yeah. And instead it became the actual hero of the trip. And thank you to everybody who responded and commented that, yep, good for pushing on. Thank you. It did a lot for morale, and it was good to see friends that we only see every 2 to 3 years. So yeah. I'm glad we were able to rescue it. The biggest shout out, of course, to my wife, who didn't crawl under a rock somewhere when I started to come apart.
She's a strong woman.
She is. She's a great. She's more than my match, and so that's fantastic. And all the Jeepers that we ran into in Nashville and the surrounding areas. Sorry I wasn't driving the Jeep that often because, again, with the group of people, we had 2 trucks that were seated 5 people each, and so everywhere we went, we took the 2 pickup trucks. Yeah. But those times I did get out and was driving around and got a few Jeep waves. So thank you, the folks on the highway as we came down 65 through Alabama. There was a lot more appreciative Jeepers down as we rolled down 65. That's a neat route, by the way, if you're willing to take an extra couple of hours on the trip. It gets you home just fine, and you skip Atlanta. Yay. Yeah. I was not looking forward to taking the TJ through, if you know what I'm talking about, the downtown Atlanta chicanes that go under
the bypass,
all that kind of stuff. So I skipped that.
It's actually kind of funny you mentioned that because on the way up to North Carolina, we did 75 this time. Okay. And we skipped Atlanta and we went down a back. I'm about to find out if it's the same road because we eventually want to end up on 28 or 80 or 77 or whatever. But we went down a back road. Yep. And it was the most pleasurable drive. Yeah, it was 55 miles an hour, but it's an old trucking route. Yeah. Everyone was bypassing the way station. But it was fun because it was 2-lane country road, take me home and, West Virginia, whatever, but however the song goes. But it actually made the drive in the Gladiator a little more relaxing.
Yeah, that's always a good thing. So, all right, guys. Well, I think we bored you enough with my week in Nashville. Ended up being successful. Some challenges. The TJ became the hero of the show. When the big International decided to literally go, I'm not playing anymore. And it will be the rescue rig when it comes to go up and get the thing, because it is set up for a tow rig. And use my folly as your education. Be prepared, even with something as simple as information. As Scott said, if nothing else, put some notes in your phone, for heaven's sakes, because when you're stuck on the side of a road that's nowhere near any town, 20 miles outside of anywhere USA, a little knowledge can really make things a little less stressful. If you know your brakes, for your modification, your starter model numbers. If it's something non-standard, you can get to an AutoZone, you can get to an O'Reilly's, you can get to, Pat and Joe's car parts, you can get to a junkyard, but you got to have the knowledge of what you've got. And so a simple sheet, I intend to take my build sheet and both put it in a PDF. And I don't know about your phone, my Apple phone has a PDF reader, so I can stick the file in there and open it in a heartbeat. And I'm also going to take and print out a set and fold it up and put it into my little papers where I keep my registrations in the glove box. Because you know what? When you're under that stress level, the ability to go, wait, I have that stuff right here.
One less thing you got to worry about.
One less thing you got to worry about.
Because Murphy always wants to say hi.
Oh, yes. And he basically moved in for the week with me, or at
remember-
least for a couple of days.
Remember, it has Murphy sitting there reading books. What? What do you say?
What do you say? Oh,
Well, on that note,
Murphy will always rise to the challenge.
yes, I think it's time to lock some HUDs.
HUDs?
OTT After Dark.
Yes. Scott still got to drive, 45 minutes to an hour home. So anyhow, folks, as he was trying to say,
Yes. Words.
yes, time to lock hubs, put the Jeep in 4-low, and hit the trail with us.
And take nothing but peppers. Take nothing. No,
I
no,
think
no,
he's trying
no,
to do
no,
this.
No. Take nothing but peppers, hot sauce, and a sack of taco sauce when you leave the trail.
Well, that kind of fits into
and when you do that, take all your trash,
your picture.
take nothing but pictures
and memories,
and memories,
and your trash.
your trash.
Particularly that hot sauce. Have you ever seen a raccoon having a stroke from having too much? It's a horrible sight, when he eats too much picante sauce.
The ones that eat out of my trash can, they're like, bring it, fat boy.
Well, remember, if you're out in the woods on the trail, they might not have the Epicurean knowledge that yours do, and they don't know what it is.
Epidural what? All right, it's time to get
Epicurean.
going. I'm going to have to go Google that now. My Google's going to be like, this isn't the stuff he normally Googles. No, never mind. With that, folks. We've lost it.
We did. It's, oh, Lord. I just looked at the clock. That was a bad move. I'm glad I'm retired. You're not.
I don't have to be at work till 10-ish.
Ish. Okay, well, okay, it's still getting late. So
Yeah.
anyway, folks, go ahead.
Hey, you know what? Thank you for everything, all you listeners, the Patreons, everything you share.
Yep.
And again, as the love outreach on the Facebook page, in other words,
That was fantastic. That was absolutely fantastic.
And even our emails. We had one listener ask a question a little bit ago about Stroker Motors we haven't got to yet. That's in the files. I'm sending them out a sticker for their show idea. And again, Ed Martin, one of our Patreons, we talked about the 4XE show.
Yep.
He actually found a person who's been doing some swaps with electrical stuff.
Yep.
So please send us emails on thetrailpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
We would, and if your information is something we can make a show out of, we'll do a show on it.
Exactly.
It's a lot of fun.
All right.
And we'll keep you updated on this ongoing RV saga as it develops.
Yes.
Of course, it could be a month or more, they're telling me on the parts, so we'll see how it goes.
That's the law of the land right now. Be patient with your parts, people, and have a wonderful day.
We'll talk at you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Proceeding has been provided for entertainment only. Proper service and repair procedures are vital to the safe, reliable operation of all motor vehicles, as well as personal safety of those performing those repairs. Standard safety procedures and precaution, including the use of safety goggles and proper tools and equipment, should be followed at all times to eliminate the possibility of personal injury or improper service which could damage the vehicle or compromise its safety.
What he said. Thanks a lot for listening, guys. You guys have a great day.
Bye.
This has been a Bent Axle Media production.